Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Sunday night, Cultural Confederacy here, and yes, I've got my corncob pipe with me again, enjoying some Smoker's Pride whiskey, drinking an off-brand of my donut shop coffee. It was like $7 or $8 for a 14-ounce can at the local store. Can't complain. But let's get to the news of the day. This is at abcnews.com, in case you missed it. Mississippi governor again proclaims Confederate Heritage Month. Now, this came out April 13th. Story by Emily Wagster Pettus, last name Pettus. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves is defending his decision to again name April as Confederate Heritage Month. He's defending his decision nearly 2 years after he signed a law retiring the last state flag in the U.S. that featured a Confederate battle emblem. The Republican governor signed a proclamation without fanfare Friday, does not mention slavery, the defense of which was Mississippi's stated reason for trying to secede from the U.S. Was that really true? Because if you go back and you read the Secession Document from the state of Mississippi, it just doesn't say cause of secession, it says causes. So if it says causes or reasons for secession, then obviously there was more than one reason, i.e. slavery. And a lot of people like to cherry pick that document because they just look at slavery, that's all they see. It's like a horse with blinders on. But in reality, at the time, there was a lot more going on across the country. You had Western expansion. You had conflicts between the North and South regarding trade, not just with the issue of slavery. Do you know who the richest slave owner was in Mississippi? William Johnson, who was mixed. He was white, he was black. So what they would at that time call mulatto. But he owned, when he died, I believe, like 16 slaves. But he had an 800-acre plantation. He owned 3 barber shops. He was one of the wealthiest men in Mississippi, if not the wealthiest. So getting back to the article here, in response to a question at a news conference Wednesday, Reeves said he issued a Confederate Heritage Month proclamation, quote, in the same manner and fashion that the 5 governors that came before me, Republicans and Democrats alike, for over 30 years have done. And we did it again this year, Reeves said. Didn't think this was the year to stop doing it. 4 governors before Reeves, not 5, picking hair or splitting hairs here, issued Confederate Heritage Month proclamations. By state law, Mississippi also has a Confederate Heritage Day in April, which is a holiday for state employees. Mississippi has taken steps in recent years to distance itself from symbols of the Confederacy, including removing some monuments, with critics saying the images glorify racism in a state where nearly 40% of residents are black. Well, hold on a minute. 1860, 1861, New Jersey was a slave state, a northern state. Slavery was allowed in certain parts of the country. And I want to read to you the 5 reasons for the 1850 Compromise, or actually the 5, prongs of the 1850 Compromise. You always heard that phrase, a 3-pronged solution. So there were 5 important elements to the Compromise of 1850, and California was one of them. Probably didn't know that. And I never really thought about that because I lived in Northern California in gold country, and that's really how the West was won. It was won by gold. Gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in California in 1848. California became a state in 1849. On the heels of that, in 1850, you have this compromise, and there was a reason for that, as I will mention here in a moment as we look at the compromise itself. But getting back to the article, let me go down, get down to the next paragraph here. In June 2020, Mississippi legislators voted with bipartisan support to retire the Confederate-themed state flag, and voters that November approved a new flag featuring a magnolia. Well, I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, but the symbol on the Confederate battle flag is actually St. Andrew's Cross. It was used by the Scottish as a symbol against British rule, tyranny by the British. There's a legend about that. You should go check up on that. The Battle of East Lothian. It's a really cool story. But the Confederate battle flag, the symbol on it, has its roots actually in naval history and in Scottish history, because that symbol is actually also known as the naval jack on a lot of flags. You look at the Russian flag, Russian naval, well, not the Russian national flag, but if you look at like the Russian Navy flag, you'll see that similar design. It was very common back in the day. What do you think's on the Jolly Rogers? Skull and bones? Looks like a cross, or like, oh, if you can think about it, almost like San Andreas cross. So this was a very common symbol back in the day. Reeves' office did not announce his signing of the latest Confederate Heritage Month proclamation. The Mississippi Free Press was the first to report that Sons of Confederate Veterans Chapter on Monday had a social media post showing it. Reeves has issued a similar proclamation each year since becoming governor in January 2020. Reeves' proclamation says, quote, "We honor all those who lost their lives in this war, and it's important for all Americans to reflect upon our nation's past, to gain insight from our mistakes and successes, and to come to a full understanding that the lessons learned yesterday and today will carry us through tomorrow if we carefully and earnestly strive to understand our heritage and our opportunities which lie before us." Absolutely. You take everything down. Let me take a sip of my coffee here. Pardon me. If you take everything down, you're not going to have anything to learn from or anything to write about. I mean, should we get rid of the Roman Colosseum? Because they threw Christians to the lions and they used slaves in the Colosseum for the games? Now, Mississippi's secession ordinance in 1861 said, "Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world," which leads me to the actual secession document. Yes, they did say that in this document. But guess what? They had a state convention to vote on whether or not they wanted to secede. I'm looking at this PDF right now. This is from their state journal, or the journal when they had this convention. Ordinance and resolutions. Adopted in January 1861. So it has a preamble basically here. It says, "Declaration of the immediate causes which induce and justify the secession of the state of Mississippi from the federal union." In the momentous stop, this is the first sentence, okay? This what they just quoted is the second sentence or second paragraph here. But under a declaration of the immediate causes which induce and justify the secession of the state of Mississippi from the federal union, it says, "In the momentous stop which our state has," probably step, it's kind of rough here the way they copied this. It's from the original text, so some of it's faded. "In the momentous step which our state has taken of dissolving its connection with the government of which we so long formed a part, it is but just that we should declare the prominent reasons which have induced our course." They say reasons, not reason. "Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Slavery supplies the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of the commerce of earth." So the next part they highlighted, "These products are peculiar to the climate, verging on the tropical regions, and by an imperious law of nature." Now this next part's going to sound really racist. This is their text, not mine, okay? Nothing I wrote. This is them, okay? You got to remember the time period in which this was written. Remember, at the same time period, they had the same attitude about the Irish and Chinese immigrants in California or out west. "The black race can bear exposure to the tropical sun. These products have become necessities of the world, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization." But at the time, yes, they used the word slavery, but more commonly it was known as slave labor because you had indentured servitude. You also had people that came over as immigrants. Indentured servitude was the main way that immigrants would adjust to society, become part of American society, get into the workforce, so to speak, workforce of the time. But people didn't work 9 to 5. So it was a different time period. The social structure was a lot different. But if you had immigrants who, or just somebody who entered some type of form of contract, okay, they could be held under the same provisions of the Fugitive Slave Act as somebody who was a slave or an indentured servant. And I'll read you a little bit from, or I'll read you the text of the actual Slave Act itself, or Fugitive Slave Act. So slave labor was really the common term back then, which incorporated indentured servants or different forms of labor. That blow has been long aimed at the institution and was at the point of reaching its consummation. There was no choice left us but submission to the mandates of abolition or a dissolution of the Union, whose principles had been subverted to work out our ruin. Now, it goes on to say this here. They talk about 1819, 1820, when the South was deprived of more of half of the territory acquired from France. And this same hostilely dismembered Texas and seized upon all the territory acquired from Mexico. It has grown until it denies the right of property, in slaves, and refuses protection to what right on the high seas, that right, like I said, again, I'm reading text that's somewhat faded. That right on the high seas, in the territories, and wherever the government of the United States has jurisdiction. It refuses the admission of new slave states into the Union and seeks to extinguish it by confining it within its present limits, denying the power of expansion. It tramples the original equality of the South underfoot. It has nullified the fugitive slave law in almost every free state in the Union and has utterly broken the compact which our fathers pledged their faith to maintain. What they're referring to there, they're going back to the Articles of Confederation. They're going back to the original American ideal, which was the government was supposed to be limited, the states were sovereign and independent. You find that language, sovereign, independent, or working in their sovereign, independent character in the preamble to the CSA Constitution. Now, they go after the North here. They say the North, saying it is the word they use here. It advocates Negro equality socially and politically and promotes insurrection and incendiarism in our midst. It has enlisted its press, its pulpit, and its schools against us until the whole popular mind of the North is excited and inflamed with prejudice. It has made combinations and formed associations to carry out its schemes of emancipation in the state and wherever also slavery exists. It seeks not to elevate or support the slave, but to destroy his present condition without providing a better. So these people in the North are latching on to the abolitionist movement, which gained steam. But the abolitionists at the time were seen kind of as a fringe movement. They were violent. What they were doing is attacking property in the South of these slave owners, including black slave owners, by the way. So these people were having their property attacked. Slaves were being harassed. So a lot of this was going on. The government was turning a blind eye. South had asked for the government to help in and solve this problem. Government refused to do it. But they weren't offering any type of solution or compromise so that everybody could benefit from that. I mean, you have this thing called slavery. How do you fix this issue of slavery in the country if you're wanting to abolish it without trampling on the rights of the states who were under this original agreement that states are sovereign and independent? See, there was a constitutional argument here. So let's go to the Fugitive Slave Clause. And I'll get back to the article in a moment. It says here, and this is Clause 3, no person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor. Got to learn to slow down when I'm reading. But shall be delivered up upon claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. Notice it just doesn't say slaves here. It says no person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor. So that's anybody who had some type of labor contract. Slave, indentured servant. Anybody who had some type of contract of labor was obligated to fulfill that contract. That's the actual text from the Fugitive Slave Act, or Fugitive Slave Clause. But there is a really good website out there. This is from North Carolina. It's called Anchor. Remember, North Carolina was part of the Confederacy. Talks about the Compromise of 1850. So I'll just read you a brief excerpt of this, and pardon me for going a little bit in the weeds here. I'm just trying to give you some context here. Until 1845, it had seemed likely that slavery would be confined to the areas where it had already existed. It had been given limits by the Missouri Compromise in 1820, had no opportunity to overstep them. The new territories made renewed expansion of slavery a real likelihood. Many Northerners believed that if not allowed to spread, slavery would ultimately decline and die. To justify their opposition to adding new slave states, they pointed to the statements of Washington and Jefferson and to the Ordinance of 1787, which forbade the extension of slavery into the Northwest. Texas, which already permitted slavery, naturally entered the Union as a slave state. But here we go with California. But the California, New Mexico, and Utah territories did not have slavery. From the beginning, there were strongly conflicting opinions on whether they should. Southerners urged that all land acquired from Mexico should be thrown open to slaveholders. Anti-slavery Northerners demanded that all the new regions be closed to slavery. One group of moderates suggested that the Missouri Compromise line be extended to the Pacific, with free states north of it and slave states to the south. Now, here are the 5 components of the compromise itself. Compromise of 1850 contained the following provisions. 1. California admitted to the Union as a free state. 2. The remainder of the Mexican secession was divided into 2 territories of New Mexico and Utah and organized without mention of slavery. 3. The claim of Texas to a portion of New Mexico was satisfied by a payment of $10 million. 4. New legislation, the Fugitive Slave Act, was passed to apprehend runaway slaves and return them to their masters. And 5, the buying and selling of slaves, but not slavery. See, there were 2 separate issues. You had the buying and selling of slaves, and you had slavery itself. Okay, was abolished in the District of Columbia. So in the District of Columbia, they abolished the buying and selling of slaves, but not slavery itself. That's the Compromise of 1850. So going back to the article here, it says, quote, his Confederate Heritage Month proclamation sounds like he's endorsing critical race theory. Learn from the past, etc., Mavis wrote Tuesday on Twitter. Heritage of Confederacy is treason and slavery. We should learn from those things, just maybe not in the ways he imagines. So let me back up. That's Governor Ray Mavis, former Mississippi governor, Democrat, who held the office from 1988 to 1992, did not issue a Confederate Heritage Month proclamation, and he criticized Reeves for doing so. Well, did the state of Mississippi commit treason? No, not really, because our founders, they seceded from Great Britain. At the time, they were part of the nation of Great Britain, and slavery existed in all 13 colonies when we seceded from Great Britain. So let me see if there's anything else in this article I missed. I'm doing this in one take tonight, so bear with me as we go through this. That's pretty much the article right there. Yep. So I think I covered it all, and I wanted to incorporate everything I could in this video. So thank you for being with me. Like I said, doing this in one take tonight. Check it out, abcnews.com. So Governor Tate Reeves, is defending his decision to again name April as Confederate Heritage Month. Article by Emily Wagster Pettus, last name Pettus. This came out April 13th. Thank you for being with me. Culture Confederacy saying peace out, stay safe, everybody. God bless this great country. I'll catch you next time. And the reason I want to cover this is not because I'm so gung-ho for the Confederacy, but because this is a part of America's heritage, whether you want to accept it or not. We had a Civil War. We had all these issues here in the country. It was part of our country. My phone is beeping, telling me that the video's over. So I will catch you next time, and I might do a separate video about this, do a conclusion video to what I posted tonight. So you all take care. Thanks. Bye.